For the longest time, when we've talked about the Caterpillar, or when CIG rather has talked about the Caterpillar, even going to pre-white box kind of renders where they're, or not renders, but when they're laying everything out and they're working things out, we've heard about modules for the Caterpillar, right? And the salvage module, of course, was one that came up at one point very early on. I think it was 2015. They were talking about making a catapult, kind of half jokingly, so you could catapult people to the other ship. And we have since kind of come back to this again and again and again, saying, oh, when are we going to find out about these modules? When are we going to find out about these modules? But with the latest update to tractor beams that CIG is proposing, does a salvage module really seem all that necessary, or is it something that we can kind of hold off on? As we get to an era in the game where we can actually do this, presumably in June, possibly, quite possibly later, we might get to a point where we can actually salvage modules. And one of the beauties of the Caterpillar, its side opening cargo doors, is going to fully come into fruition within the game. The value of it is going to be undeniable when you're using it as a ship to pull in a whole bunch of cargo very quickly, or strip out a whole bunch of modules onto the Caterpillar very, very quickly. I had gotten used to the Caterpillar as kind of being a cargo ship, and truth be told, looking into the future, I had always considered the possibility that I might do the old switcheroo with my characters and make Minion the character who moves things around for the other character who will actually be the pirate and kind of flip things over. That had kind of become a possibility that I'd been thinking about in my head, but one of the things that always kind of stuck with me was the idea of the Caterpillar being the raid commander. And this, for those of you who remember way, way back in the day, this was one of CIG's long ago posts when they were dealing with ships and their roles in the universe, and the Caterpillar was seen as kind of the heavyweight in these kind of pirate raids. And they had kind of alluded to some things that were pretty obviously not going to happen, but I think that the central role of the Caterpillar in a pirate raid, or in any form of, combat type squad where you're hoping to pick up salvage and items, its value becomes very obvious. While its firepower remains, I think it would be fair to say, woefully inadequate compared to something like the Corsair. Obviously, it's not really going to be your frontline fighter. And if you choose to use vessels for combat or for piracy that are more heavy-hitting, combat-oriented ships, then when you're looking at the Caterpillar, you can easily say this is the ship that shows up maybe a little bit later in the fight and just, supplies the ability to transport goods away. Sort of like the pickup truck in, some security camera footage video that just kind of backs through the doors of the shop, and everybody just starts loading everything into the pickup truck real quick to for it to drive away. It's the means by which you can get your ill-begotten goods out very quickly. It's the ideal smash and grab cargo ship. And that is an interesting strength. One of the problems that you might face, especially if you're looking at the game from a pirate point of view, is I've gone and I've disabled this ship, but now the clock is ticking. And this is something that we see in the current persistent universe right now. If you're out there and you're doing pirate missions, and you happen to be flagged as a pirate, you know that it's all about getting in, getting it done, and then getting the hell out of there before somebody shows up to stop you, right? The profit end of piracy is something that has never really manifested itself up until recently. And now you're in an ideal situation where the Caterpillar, its true value really kind of comes into play. Its strengths are now undeniable when you look at these tractor beam changes and the possibility of, fingers crossed, the tractor beams on the ship itself being, finally coming to life. It just sounds awesome, and it makes me very excited. The current state of 318 obviously is a bummer, a real bummer. But even though I look at the game and I say, "Oh, that's really bad," or "Oh, that really sucks," and I wish that would change. And there's a number of things when talking about Star Citizen. If we're really honest with ourselves, there are problems. There are definitely problems, and I think there are larger issues that are going to kind of come to the forefront more or less after Squadron 42 comes out and we start seeing CIG saying, well, these are the things that we thought were possible, but now this is what we can actually do type situation. But you won't see that until after they finish Squadron 42, I don't think. But when you think about the role that this ship is going to play in Star Citizen, its value in that kind of pirate hierarchy of ships for increasing the value of a pirate raid, increasing the speed and the mobility of a pirate raid, it's incalculable. A fairly good argument could be made that a careful pirate group could go all the way up to something like a Reclaimer, and it's definitely something that I want to test in the future. But for ultimate smash and grab, I would still kind of, as someone who owns both ships, I would still kind of give it to the Caterpillar, where speed and mobility are factors to be considered. The Caterpillar, I still feel, is that classic raid commander ship. It is the ideal, where I find that the Reclaimer would be a little bit more situational. The Caterpillar is the one-size-fits-all. Now, that's not to say that the other pirate ships, well, any ship technically can be a pirate ship, let's be honest, or nearly every. But certainly, like, the Cutlass and the Corsair still have a role, still have cargo bays, and are still fantastic. And in light of these changes that are being proposed and developed, are much stronger candidates than they were before. The Caterpillar just, I think, represents in that whole area of cargo takeaway and component takeaway, where you're just trying to grab them and go. This really is the king. And that's pretty damn awesome, considering that I think when we originally bought these ships, these things were like $225 or something. That low those many years ago, compared to what they cost now. Well, that's true of the Reclaimer as well. But yeah, it's very gratifying to see these changes and to see them coming so quickly after this kind of first take on tractor, or not really tractor beams, but on salvage, and now adding this further depth to it with using the tractor beams to strip out modules. I don't think you're ever going to get to a point, unless you're doing strictly PvE missions and you're on the good side of law enforcement, where you're ever going to be able to just thoroughly strip everything off of a ship. But being able to go in and get the good stuff, the weapons, off of the ship really quickly is going to be probably a critical capability. And frankly, this ship is the most perfectly set up one for it. But that is going to come with its own series of challenges as well, because we're going to be kind of confronting the idea of who wants to man the turret on the support ship, who wants to be kind of mostly a little bit bored during the operations. But that's delving into the area of like crews and multi-crew ships and who wants to sit in a turret and, you know, in a civilian ship that's just doing cargo runs and things like that. Subject for another video, you know, just pay for an escort, dude, and you'll be safe. You know, this kind of delves into that area and something worth discussing in the future. But yeah, the Caterpillar's been around for a long time, and I mean, let's face it, just another one of these ships that we've been talking about for a long time, and here it is. It's undeniable now. Its value is inescapable. I mean, it's these Drake ships. What did I say, man? They just keep hitting it out of the park. Can't wait to see what they do with the Herald.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.